Bum, bum, ba-dum. Okay, I think I finally have my setup. Hi, friends. As an update, this year has not been a great year of continuity on my YouTube, but I just wanted to continue the story that had happened on my YouTube back in 2019. And that was going on this Eat, Pray, Love journey around the world. And so, to add a little context, the year before that, I was extremely sick in the hospital. And as I started to recover, I decided to leave my job, leave everything behind, and travel the world and study meditation across 6 different countries. I traveled all around Asia, Europe, United States, and studied and sat in many months of silence. And I wanted to make a video just to kind of provide an update of what's happened since then in the past year. And so, what I ended up doing in the end of 2019, once I finished traveling, I went back home to Los Angeles, where my mom is, stayed with her for a little bit. And as I was figuring out what my next steps were, whether it was to travel or go somewhere else abroad, I decided to come back to New York City. I had lived in New York City a handful of years ago, and when I had left, I wanted to explore other parts of the United States, and I just had this urge to come back to New York City. It was largely inspired by a couple of my lessons coming out of my Eat, Pray, Love journey in 2019. The first major insight was mindfulness. Yes, it's super important, but even more than that, equity within mindfulness is so important. And the crazy part while I was traveling and studying mindfulness and meditation in Asia was that I was one of the very few Asian people, if not the only queer Asian person, on my meditation retreats. And to me, that was extremely surprising, not just the queer part, but the Asian part especially. Here I am in the middle of Thailand, Japan, India, and being still the minority in these countries where the majority were Asian. And I was really inspired by that to make something happen, create more equitable spaces. And also, a big insight or a big learning point about traveling and being a nomad was that I got super tired of having to find the basic necessities everywhere I went. Granted, when you're a nomad, you're probably not switching cities every week, every 2 weeks. And I was really aggressive at one point, going from city to city to city multiple times a week. And some of the basic necessities like laundry, food, electricity, and even internet was not reliable anywhere I went. And there were moments when I was creating a YouTube video and trying to upload it, and it was just taking so long, so many hours. And I felt that a lot of my time traveling abroad was really spent to do a lot of the figuring out of all these basic essentials that if I had a more permanent place, I would just figure it out once and I would have to think about it again. And so it really inspired me to want to set up shop somewhere else. And then the last part, I had no idea that COVID was going to happen. And I think timing just worked out super, super well, where I had this wanderlust, traveled around the world, and everything just came to a nice close. And then COVID sprang up. With those three realizations, I settled in New York. End of 2019 was planting the seeds, and 2020 for me was really growing my roots into the city. And so I went to work this year, and my social media presence has been a little all over the place because I've been super, super busy, being so inspired from my travels and wanting to do something about all the stuff that I learned. And so, as a part of my travels, I ended up starting a podcast for queer Asian perspectives on mindfulness, and it slowly turned into a platform, the Yellow Glitter platform. And in that, I do the podcast. I host a monthly support group for queer Asian folks, free for queer Asian folks to attend, and also now hosting the first queer Asian mindfulness retreat happening next month in January. And also, I created a nonprofit, a 501c3 organization called Mindful Sites that aims to make mindfulness more accessible to marginalized communities. And so the community that organization is starting with is the Asian American community. And with that, we also host monthly support groups, also creating free, accessible meditations for everyone to listen to, and that's on the Mindful Sites YouTube channel, and slowly growing that database of meditation. And through this year with the Black Lives Matter movement and thinking about how do I make my own personal work more accessible, which isn't in mindfulness, which is in design, user experience, I started an organization called QTBIPOC Design, which stands for Queer, Trans, Black, Indigenous, People of Color Design, which provides free design mentorship, education, and networking opportunities for LGBTQ plus designers of color. And and amongst that, I also started my own personal agency that services big clients, small clients with design and user experience support called Stranger Creative. And so really this year has been creating 4 organizations that I'm super, super passionate about. And also I had been living with a roommate last year when I came back to New York City. I actually love roommates. I used to live by myself when I was here in New York originally, but then I ended up deciding to live with other people because I just wanted company when I was at home. But since the pandemic started, the roommate was not really great at following quarantine protocols, had people over, and this was in May, June. It was absolutely crazy. And so August of this year, I ended up deciding to move into a space of my own. And with that, starting to cultivate and nest. And although it ended up costing a little bit more money, I am super excited to have to, I am very grateful to be able to have the space to just focus on my work. And overall, it's been an extremely tumultuous, crazy year. And a big part of me is extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to go abroad and sit in silence at all of these meditation retreats. And it was almost a foreshadowing / training for this year when I would be cooped up all by myself. And, I understand how hard it is, especially on my first meditation retreat. I was told to just not talk for 7 days, and I had never done that before. And it was one of the hardest and most rewarding experiences that I've done. And subsequent retreats got harder and harder as the duration extended from 7 to 10 to 15 days. And also the lack of amenities. I was stuck in, at one retreat, just this concrete room, this jail cell, and they confiscate all of your items because they want you to just focus on meditation. And so all I had with me was a bamboo mat and a wooden block to put my head on. And because it was the summer, no blankets. It was absolutely crazy. And now everything just feels like luxury now. But yeah, so that is what ended up happening after my Eat, Pray, Love journey. And I am so, so grateful for the experience and the lessons and insights. And I am extremely passionate about putting into action all the stuff that I saw that I wanted to change, shift. And one of my biggest insights, especially in the 2019 retreat, if you saw my video on YouTube, was the meditation retreat in Thailand, where I was at a Buddhist monastery and it was extremely intolerant to my queer identity. And I was so upset. I was crying. I was bawling on that retreat. It was this expectation that I had that wasn't met. I really thought going to study with Buddhist monks who are so enlightened was going to be quite enjoyable and allow me to be who I am. But, uh, you know, I think it was a great, great opportunity to see that intolerance is everywhere, even the places we least expect it the most. And so, with that, yeah, still a little PTSD, still now thinking about it. But I think that if that experience did not happen, I wouldn't be as passionate about the work that I do right now. And so, in hindsight, tears were, tears were tears are had, but they're extremely, extremely valuable. And so many more things happened with this year, not just starting these organizations and uh, moving out into my own space, but also learning how to cut my own hair. I used to have a perm, and I've had a perm for the longest time, and now no perm. Stephen cuts his own hair, and sometimes it's misshapen, sometimes it's not, which I'm so grateful for. But just enjoying the experience, enjoying the opportunity to do that. And I think the biggest challenge for me has been to also figure out how to manage my time, manage my schedule, juggling so many things all the time. And I think the the item that we all have experience with is really leaning into spending more time with myself. And what does that look like? And there's some days when I've been extremely sad, extremely depressed. This morning, I woke up and I meditated, and there's just overwhelming sadness coming out, almost this unleashing of everything that had happened all of this year, and just so much deep introspection with emotional states, purpose, life, everything. And so 2021, it's going to be a lot of weathering this COVID-19 storm and just seeing where things go. A lot of bright lights pointing to the vaccinations, but there's a lot of mutations. Who knows who's going to be vaccinated? Politics in the United States is quite a nightmare too. And with that, continuing to do the work and expanding my organizations, and letting go of some of the structures that are placed on just processes. And I read so many self-help books, and they're always about, oh, you must focus on one. And I don't know, I'm just leaning more into just enjoying doing things. And a big part of just having all these organizations is being able to touch on so many things, really important things. Mindfulness for marginalized identities, education for marginalized communities. And with that, a big, big lesson for me this year I want to take into next year is also just enjoying the process, enjoying how the sausage is made, and and seeing what comes. And although it is great to set milestones and goals and OKRs and all of these things to measure, track, and implement, but a big part of why I had been burning out so many times was because the milestones I had set were never really taking into consideration what I really wanted to do, or just enjoying the process, enjoying the work. And big lesson insight that has come out of my design work has been to not just teach people about the skills and expertise to be an amazing designer, but to do it in a way that you still enjoy the craft, you are still passionate about it. And I think it's super easy to lose sight of sometimes why we get into doing things and why we chase after our visions, our dreams, our goals, because we get so wrapped up in numbers, money, fame, whatever it is. And these things come and go. We could be famous one second and, stranger the next. We could be extremely rich one second and extremely poor the next. Very healthy and then very sick. And for me, also now tying it back to mindfulness, has been to lead with example. And it is so extremely hypocritical of me if I were to teach people a certain thing and I didn't implement it myself. And so as I looked into myself and asked myself, how can I enjoy the process more? So many things, so many insights just started to unlock. And while that process may evolve and shift and change over time, it's been quite enlightening to see how I move into different spaces, work, projects, groups, community, people, with the things that I resonate because I enjoy it. And everything feels like play every single day. So with that, 2020 in a nutshell, it's been a crazy year. Really interesting for me. So many insights. I'm really curious how it was for you. Let me know. Hope it was insightful, at least at the very minimum. And I hope all of us a healthy, amazing 2021 to come. And really looking forward to seeing where we can all go, especially as a community. There's so many opportunities in front of us, and the world is our oyster. We just have to shuck it. But we don't want to hurt the oyster, so maybe the world is our oyster, and we're going to care for it and nurture it, put it in and no, we're not going to put it in a tank. Release it into the wild. And so with that, hope you're doing well, and we'll see what else comes on this YouTube channel. It's so crazy. If you look at my past videos, it's just it is really the amalgamation of Steven's life journey through so many things. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have a historical archive of my growth through all the years. And so with that, hope your day can be a little bit more mindful, a little bit more happier, a little bit more amazing. And with that, I'll talk to you later. Bye.